I discovered in my career with CIA, the flaws of CIA, the overclassification, the fundamental flaw in hierarchy, the grandfathering system of promotion, right? It wasn't a meritocracy where good jobs get you rewarded. It was a sandbox where playing nice with the bigger kids got you promoted. And I didn't want to be part of that. I also woke up to the fact that the very same training that I was taught to use against foreigners, the manipulation, the psychological techniques, the Rice method of using people's motivations against them, that was the way of management. That was what senior leaders did to junior leaders, what mid-careerists did to junior careerists. That was the process. That was the culture. And I looked at myself, and I was married at the time to my wife, and I looked at my wife, and we were pregnant with our first child, and I was like, hey, do we really want to dedicate our future, which now includes the future of our child, do we want to dedicate our future to a career where all we're doing is just going through this rinse, wash, repeat cycle and not actually trying to advance the mission?
You're both agents at this time.
We're both agency at the time, correct. Right? Because for me, the moment my wife and I were pregnant, everything changed.
Yeah.
And then the moment that child was born, everything just cemented the original change, right? Because once you have a little person, everything is for them. And then you want more little people, and everything becomes for them too. And when we went to the agency, before we left, we went to the agency and we said, hey, we had just come off of a very big case, a very successful operation. We're hoping to get an approval from CIA actually in the next few weeks that lets us tell the story. But we went to CIA coming off the heels of this very successful operation. We were like, we would like.
Oh wait, I want to pause on that. You're hoping to get approval from the CIA to tell this story publicly.
Correct.
Of this. Okay.
Correct, because that's one of the things that we have to do. Anything about our operational background needs prior approval first. I'm sure you're familiar with that for yourself.
Just like a Pentagon review for my books and stuff like that.
Correct. So we've got to do the same thing. So we're very, very close. It's been multiple years trying to get the approval, but we're closer than we've ever been. But the reason I say that is just because we were coming back to CIA with a lot of what we call WASTA, influence, high referral rates. Like people wanted to work with us. We were coming off of a big operation. So we went to CIA and we were like, hey, give us a simple assignment. Give us something like light duty for 3 years so we can have our child, raise him till he was 2, and then put him in daycare. That's all we were asking for, was just give us light duty. Send us to like some US CONUS place to work with FBI. Send us to like the tech lab where we can help tech officers develop new technology. Give us light duty for 3 years. Because what we were really saying was, give us an easy job so we can shuffle our child off to some childcare and never worry about him again so we can come back and do the mission. But that's not what we meant, right? We were so blind to the mission that we were at that moment willing to trade our lifetime as parents to become lifetime operators. And thank God CIA looked at us and said, no, we're not going to give you light duty. You can find a nanny to take care of your child because we need you over here and we need you to do this. And it became very clear to us that we were just pawns in a game. And CIA didn't care about us as individuals, didn't care about us as a couple, didn't care about us as parents, right? They just wanted us to keep grinding and grinding and grinding until the day came that we were totally disposable. Yeah. And it became so clear in that moment that not only was CIA using us, but we were letting them use us, using the same techniques and tactics that they taught us at the farm. And it was a moment of clarity that changed my life forever, because I went back to my wife and I was like, we're done here. We can't stay here, because we would be giving up on the best part of our future, giving up on the chance to be parents, giving up on the chance to be married and committed to each other, because we'll always be married to the agency and committed to the mission first, right? CIA even has a saying, mission first, family always, which is just the fancy way of saying family second.
Yeah. Man, I'm so glad to hear you guys recognize that, because so many people don't. I even shared a personal story with you before we started the show of me not coming aware of that till the job crushed me, and then I realized, well, they're really not here for me.
Yeah.
I felt very used and taken advantage of, and so many people don't realize that until you're washed up and they're done with you, and then they kind of cast you aside.
And it's so important for veterans especially to understand whatever value you believed you had in uniform is exponentially more when you get out of uniform.
Yeah.
Because now you have all the experiences, all the value, all the impact that you had as a veteran, as a military member, which is something that only 1 out of every 15 Americans ever experiences anyways, right? So few people know what it's like to serve in the military. And now you're a civilian with that whole foundation of knowledge, experience, understanding, context. And you can bring that into the civilian world. And you can use that whether you start your own business as a landscaper or an architect or an attorney, or whether you go into the corporate world and you become a project manager or a coder or who knows what, right? Even a salesman. You're so much more better equipped to deal with stress and change and adversity and hardship than any of your civilian counterparts. But the government does such a bad job of preparing us to understand our value because they look at us as disposable resources.
So I look back at that, and I went through a phase of extreme bitterness and felt hurt, betrayed by the people who I would have given anything for. By the way, there's nothing that I would have been asked of me that I would have said no to, including, and I say this without bravado, like including sacrificing my life. That's how bought in I was, and then to exit the way I did and to be treated the way I was at the end, I felt so used and I felt like a fool, to be honest with you. And so I went through a period of being real jaded and bitter. But then I went through another phase of pragmatically trying to decide, do they have to function that way in order to be the greatest tier 1 special operations unit in the world? Do they have to function that way? Is that a necessity to function that way? What would you say to that? Can it be done a different way?
It can definitely be done a different way. But your point of view is the correct point of view. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the institution.
Yeah.
Right? Does the institution really have the tolerance, the patience, the budget to treat every operator as an individual? The answer is no. They have to come up with systems and processes that essentially are like a big sausage grinder. You bring in meat, you pack it into sausage, you clip the sausage at the end. That has to be how they work because they're an institution. What's frustrating to me is that they're not a progressively, constantly improving system. You run a business. It's a nonprofit, but it's a business. You grow every year. You find a better way to run the process. You find a better way to serve your people. You find a better way to serve your customers. You find a better way to run your operations. You're constantly improving. That's how the civilian world works. Constant improvement, even if it's just 2% improvement. They're always trying to improve.
Yes.
The government improves in cycles. This year, we're investing in Deloitte to come in and improve our process. But then for 10 years, we're going to be the same way. And then maybe if there's a budgetary windfall after 10 years, we'll spend another chunk of money to have, somebody else, McKesson, come in and review our systems and improve our systems. And then 10 more years of the same thing. So instead of constantly improving, it's improving in cycles, which again, the world moves very quickly. 10 years ago, we weren't using FaceTime. 10 years before that, we were barely using smartphone, apps with encrypted SMS. 10 years before that, I'm pretty sure we didn't even have cell phones that were available to the normal market. So imagine that's just the cell phone world. That's not even counting electric vehicles. That's not talking about the rise of internet television. The fact that the government might have only had 3 system upgrades in 30 years, whereas for you and I, we have an operating system upgrade every 9 months. That's insane.